Well, it's September, and I guess the July-August excitement is over. Independence is behind us, and now it's time to focus on our fiscal projection, how things will pan out for next year, of course, the rest of 2022 into 2023. All eyes will be on the budget. It will be, I'm sure, very soon, official date not just yet known to everyone. I'm sure the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance will have that particular date in their back pocket. But now let's get the conversation going, put a spotlight on the economy, and why not bring in some colleagues to share with us. The chairman of the CRBC, Vivek Sharan, joins us yet again on the Zoom line, to the top of the Zoom line, and the CRBC member, Martin George, as we deal with the economy and that spotlight, rightfully so, on our projection. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy belated independence, by the way.
Yes, hi. Good morning to JW, and the same to you and to Vivek.
Morning, Martin.
Morning, morning. So with the spotlight on our economy, we are looking at our current state, where we are at, obviously where we are positioned, what's happening. Right, so the Ministry of Finance, from what we understand, will be giving some details tomorrow. And this spotlight, very important discussion, and I'm sure coming out of this, I'm hoping, gentlemen, that some of the solutions, recommendations will be considered when the actual budget is presented. What's your wish list at this point in time? What's the business community suggesting, and where are we positioned when we look at ourselves compared to, well, at least in light of what's happening around us on the international stage? I'll probably start with Vivek first.
Good morning. Martin is actually the top guy at the Tobago Chamber of Commerce. So we're very happy to have member Martin at the CRBC, but obviously he runs his own show in Tobago as well too. What we're concerned about is obviously the issue of inflation. We've been saying that, as it is globally, that inflation can lead inexorably to a recession, and we don't want to get there. We've also been saying that what we expect is going to happen at the spotlight in the economy tomorrow is that we're going to see some positive things being highlighted. We're going to see, some increase in our GDP. We're going to see the increase in income coming in from the energy sector because of the rise in oil prices and gas prices. We're also saying that is a global phenomenon that has happened really because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, and that has kind of had some economic effects. One of those economic effects has led to a bit of a boom in terms of our energy revenues and stuff like that here. That being said, what's going to happen if that war, which we hope will not continue, would suddenly end? What would be the situation? The growth in the energy sector, which I'm sure has been there, is not being seen in the private sector, the non-energy sector. It can be said that within the manufacturing sector, certain exports have been on the rise, but basically many of the SMEs and basically many of the non-manufacturing sector in Trinidad and Tobago, we're still climbing out of the pandemic, and we're still under some pressure. What we're hoping in the budget is that we're hoping we'd see some sort of stimulus measures. We're hoping we'd see some sort of support, fiscal or otherwise, for SMEs. We're hoping that we would see some sort of what we've been asking for is a body or something to actually assist. One of the issues that has come up recently is that it's been very difficult for SMEs to get commercial bank accounts in the banks. And I want to briefly say this because this is quite important. We've seen since a couple of years ago when there was the change in the denomination that we've been seeing all these rules and regulations have been coming in to deal with money laundering and so on. When we changed the denomination, we were then told that one of the major things is this is going to help the crime situation because this is what could possibly, bring out all the money that is not within the system, and maybe it could lead to the arrest or lead to, catching the big fish and those sort of things out there. However, that has not materialized. And we're many years on. We're also seeing many of the fiscal, the regulations that have come out of the financial unit, investigative unit. It affects a lot of commercial business and commercial activities. For example, even if you do something as simple as buying a car, the amount of paperwork you don't have to go through in terms of buying a car. And it also, it impacts on how you use cash and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, whereas I understand completely the idea that, what is the idea of money laundering and the effects of money laundering, what we're saying is that when it comes to legitimate businesses and legitimate small businesses and people who are trying to open small businesses, going to the bank, getting commercial accounts, it is very difficult to do so. And it is forcing these people to go into the informal sector. And we don't want them to be in the informal sector, because in the informal sector, it is difficult to access finance. It is difficult to do other things. The government says you are not in the tax net. And so it's a difficult situation, but these people are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Very important
So
point.
what we are doing at the CRBC is we're actually looking at which banks are easier to open commercial accounts at. And we're also seeing a disturbing trend that has been, I'm receiving a lot of information from small businesses and from legitimate business, people who even have businesses. What happens is that in Trinidad, as it is in other places, people try to open side businesses for their spouses, for their children, and they open. When you open a business, you obviously you try to have a commercial account. A lot of these commercial accounts are being shut down. They're being shut down because not a lot of money they say is being passed through it. They're asked to get up to speed with certain things, but nonetheless, people are being called in. A lot of these small accounts are being closed down. These small commercial accounts are being closed down. At this point in time, it's easy to understand why there's not the cash flow going through the accounts, because we just keep coming out of the COVID scenario over the last 2 years. But it is within certain banks in particular this is happening. These people have actually reached out for legal help and legal advice. It's a thorny issue, though, because they don't want to butt heads with the bank as well. So many times the lawyers are saying, you know what, just leave it alone, let them close it down, whatever. But it is insidious to a certain degree. And we at the Confederation are looking into it and talking to the lawyers and talking to the people involved to try and actually find out why is this situation happening. Why are small business accounts being closed down? And when that happens, we want to come out and say which are the banks that are closing it down. And perhaps if you want to open a business account or so on, then you should look at these other banks to go to and do so.
You know what? Let me bring Martin in, because again, important points. Again, that whole issue of ease of doing business seems to rear its ugly head yet again. And even though we're going to focus on the local budget, just to kind of put a little curveball in the mix, I saw recently the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Holness, he would have mentioned that they're looking into finding ways that businesses from Trinidad and Tobago can be recognized in Jamaica, and the same for Jamaican businesses being recognized in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, when it comes to Tobago, when it comes to, of course, the major income earner, which is tourism, could this scenario help in that regard? And what also would be part of the major conversation, major part of the recommendations being put forward tomorrow in that spotlight on the economy?
Okay, yeah, thank you, JW. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to the ease of doing business index, we are very low on the totem pole as a nation. And that has been so for several years. We need to look at it holistically in terms of all the different ways that we make things difficult. And when I tell you difficult, I am telling you about the typical experience of you trying to register a document with a government agency or deal with some compliance issue with a government agency, and they love to tell you, come back. No, you can't do it that way. No, you need to sign it in blue ink, not black ink. I mean, where on earth does it matter if you sign in blue ink or black ink, except Trinidad and Tobago? You know, you need to go and get the original from the registry. But you're filing your document with the registry, but they're telling you need to get an original certified copy from the registry. But they have it there already, so they could check and see. So listen, there are so many ways that we complicate the process. and make things difficult for persons, even simple things like, you're telling somebody that they can't come into a government office wearing a short pants. What does that matter to you going and do business? I mean, actually, I was quite heartened to see the THA took, the initiative to put a ban on that kind of practice, of stopping people from coming in with a short pants.
But Martin, I'll tell you this in that regard, because I know that's a sign I see actually by the passport office, literally 2 streets away from our media house here, Guardian Media. And honestly, I understand what you're saying here, but there are some Trinbagonians who go to conduct business, Martin, in the most lewd and I would say, I mean, almost like you just roll off your bed. I mean, I wonder where is the standard?
Right. So in other words, you could make it and say that, look, you ought not to be wearing any particularly suggestive wear or anything that is obscene or whatever. So yeah, and do that. But I mean, if you wear a decent pair of short pants, I mean, we're in the Caribbean. Come on. I mean, look at Bermuda. Shorts are part of their business attire because they recognize the fact that, look, hey, in a Caribbean context, that is what is accepted. But I mean, it goes way deeper than that, JW. It goes to all the red tape and the hurdles which are placed in your way. If you have to import a container as a business person, I mean, the amount of, documents you have to fill out, the amount of forms, and they love telling you, no, go and come back.
Well, let me ask you, Martin, and probably Vivek could also chime in really fast, because I know we kind of pressed for time. I've heard, and I think I would have raised this already with you, Martin, I've always heard that it's done in that way. They make the process a bit difficult so that it can facilitate the greasing of the wheel, as it were, the passing of the brown envelope under the table to get it done fast. So that's what I've heard. I'm not in business, but I've heard that these obstacles are there so that if you wanted to really run smooth, you kind of just water the plant a little bit now.
And that's exactly the root of the problem, because the point is, when you encourage that, you facilitate so much corruption in the system that it becomes endemic. So in other words, it then now favors the employees and staff to create obstacles because they know that, look, in order to ease things, they are encouraging persons to, as you say, pass something under the table. And that cannot be good for business in Trinidad and Tobago. I always use Singapore as an example where they have been so strict with things like that, it's now unthinkable. I mean, I'm telling you, JW, in Singapore, they have it so rigid in terms of their, monitoring of you. Even new cars now in Singapore, they are connected to the government's transport system. So if you break a red light, your car reports on you. So, I mean, it is, maybe to the other extreme there, but at the end of the day, we in Trinidad and Tobago, we need to start making sure that we avoid these circumstances where you are encouraging this nepotism, the passing the money under the table, the corruption that becomes so endemic that the system becomes clogged because of it. And that is part of the problem. I mean, of course, I haven't yet touched on what Tobago should be thinking of in terms of the budget. One of the main things we at the Tobago Chamber have been asking for is for the immediate and unconditional repeal of the Foreign Investment Act, which has been a major blockage. JW, there is no good reason why the government keeps that legislation in place. It has not served its purpose, and all it has done is cripple any direct foreign investment. We in TNT, we are starved for foreign exchange. Why on earth will you have in place legislation that blocks the direct investment of foreign exchange into Tobago? It makes absolutely no sense. That's at the top of our list, and that's not just for benefiting Tobago, it's for benefiting all of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
We've also suggested that Tobago should be looked at to be made into a duty-free or VAT-free zone, because that will also produce tremendous investment in Tobago. Those are 2 big-ticket items that we keep calling upon the government to deal with, and we are hoping to get some resonance in this upcoming budget.
Well said, Martin and Vivek. We're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on. Please go forward there tomorrow with passion, with purpose. Raise your points, let your voices be heard. And I really trust that the ministry and the minister will take some of these recommendations from the Confederation and all the other major entities, part of that spotlight on the economy, I wouldn't say talk shop, it's a workshop really and truly. And I trust that some of these recommendations will be taken seriously. When it's all said and done, let's have another conversation to just find out and see how things, things went.
It's been a pleasure. Thank
Always.
you and have a good morning.
All the best.
Thank you very much, JW.
That's right. Vivek there, Vivek Sharon and Martin George. We come back and touch base with Officer Lal, who is stepping in, as always, on a Thursday for the Police and You segment. See you soon.